Good evening, and it's lovely to be back. I know I've been away for a couple of weeks, but it's really good to be back, especially today of all days, because this is World Menopausal Awareness Day. And for all my lovely ladies, and most of you, not necessarily all, but quite a lot of you are at that stage in your life, perimenopause, approaching that stage, menopausal, postmenopausal. Now, there's lots of things I could be talking about with regards to the menopause, and certainly last year I gave 2 really good live talks, and you can find those on my YouTube channel, Peyton Principles Natural Health, all about different ways to help with menopausal symptoms. But today, something that's been on my mind recently with regards to seeing some of my clients is that I know, and whilst I am not one to dwell on weight loss and certainly diets, but I am aware that for ladies, this sort of creeping weight gain that might occur, especially around the abdomen, this weight tends to start lying down around the abdomen when we start going through the menopause, and it can be very, very hard to shift. So I thought I'd bring a post to you tonight, my live, especially about fats in the diet and why it's so important that we eat fats, because not only, and I'm going to show you why they're so important for helping manage weight and weight loss, but also just bringing it back to how they also are very, very helpful for some of those really annoying menopausal symptoms that we can experience. Now, let's talk about fats briefly, first of all, because fats get a bad rap. For certainly me growing up, and many of you, you'll be aware of, we've been told fats make us fat. Fats are not so good for us in lots of different ways, and we're certainly getting beyond that as a concept, and I hope you are aware of that. But there certainly, I think, is still a concern about how many fats we should eat and their role in the diet and whether they're good or they're bad. So I'm going to talk about different types of fats and why we do need to be eating them. But they do have a role to play in weight control and weight loss, as I shall explain. Now, why is it that we may start to gain weight through the menopause? Now, estrogen and low estrogen is considered to be a contributory factor, but when we delve a little bit more into the research around that, the estrogen itself shouldn't be a reason for gaining weight. What is supposed to be more linked to is a sort of a change in the distribution of weight, so that we're carrying less weight in the lower half of the body, like on the thighs or on the hips, and more weight is carried around the abdomen. And I think we see that, don't we, as we start to see people getting slightly older, that they sort of have the most incredible legs, fantastic legs, yet they're carrying a bit more weight around the middle, and we don't like it, do we? You know, you might have the most amazing pair of legs and put on a pair of jeans and look fantastic, but we're always conscious of that weight that starts to creep on around the middle. And of course, the first thing that people tend to think about is calorie controlled diets. They start to reduce calories, they might start to exercise more, and they may notice a temporary reduction in weight, but it's hard to maintain. It very quickly goes back on, if not even more so, and it's very hard to keep up that motivation. So the fact is, and this is a fact, is that calorie counting does not work. It's not sustainable. It does not work in the long term. It may not even work in the short term. Well, very short term, you may notice that initial dip, but it isn't the thing that is sustained. And what is a myth is that fats make us fat. I'll say it again, fats do not make us fat. It is very much a myth. Now, fats are high in calories. So if you go on a calorie controlled diet, fats are the first thing to go, because gram for gram, when we compare fats with, say, carbohydrates, then they are more than twice the number of calories, gram for gram. Carbohydrates are 4 calories per gram, and fats are 9 calories per gram. So of course you're going to think, got to take out those fats. But the trouble is, if you start taking out the fats, they've got to be replaced with something else. And the thing that they tend to be replaced with is the starchy carbohydrates, and possibly with sugars. And if you're buying food from the shops, and over the years, what have the food manufacturers done? If you're buying packaged foods, for example, is that they've taken out that fat content, but it has to be replaced with something, and it's replaced with sugars. And so calorie wise, it looks good. And if you look at that old fashioned traffic light thing on the packet, yeah, the fats may look good, they're not in the red, but actually it's not doing you any good at all because it's far too high in starchy carbs and or sugars. So whilst it may appear to be beneficial, we now know that when we increase carbohydrates, starchy carbs, and of course sugars in the diet, you're more likely to gain weight, and it's more likely to be laid down around the abdomen. So why is this happening? Why is it if we have more starchy carbohydrates, we end up with weight being laid down around the abdomen? And this comes back to the simple, well, I say simple, it is simple, but understanding this action in the body of raised glucose in the bloodstream enhances the action of insulin. You get more insulin circulating in the bloodstream. Insulin has to do something with this excess glucose, sugar in the bloodstream, and invariably what will happen is it will convert this excess sugar and it converts it to triglycerides and lays it down as fat around the abdomen. So when we start to get our head around this concept of starchy carbs, raised blood sugar, more insulin, and insulin is not just going to utilize that sugar and create energy, which it should help to do, but if there's too much of it, it converts it to fat and lays it down as fat around the abdomen. So in my view, starches and sugars are the leading cause of weight gain, and I don't put fat in this category at all. Now, how do these fats help us to control weight? Well, they are more satiating. When we eat more fats, they help to make us feel fuller for longer. Protein has the same effect, and certainly you should be eating proteins with each of your main meals as well. Very important, but let's focus on fats tonight. They are more satiating. They're going to keep you fuller for longer. And it's more than if it was carbohydrates. Now, what happens if you've got more fats in the diet and protein as well, you're less likely to get hungry between meals and reach for snacks. You're not going to get the dip in energy, the dip in blood sugar. You're not going to get that dip in energy, craving for something sweet. You're not going to feel hungry, and you're less likely to reach for the biscuits mid-afternoon. This is a major problem that happens. And I believe, again, not only just carbohydrates and sugars, but snacks are a major culprit for the inability to lose weight. And the reason for this is because when we're eating more food mid-afternoon or mid-morning or into the evening, we start to add more snacks in. What we are also doing then is we're keeping insulin raised in the bloodstream. And going back to that concept of insulin converting excess sugars in the bloodstream to fats, you are potentially enhancing the action of insulin to lay down fat and create fat storage. But the other thing we know about insulin, double whammy here in a negative way, is that raised insulin inhibits fat breakdown. So this is another reason for keeping fats higher in the diet, because fats do not raise sugar in the bloodstream. Fats are going to keep you fuller for longer. They don't have that instant action of what they do to glucose and converting the glucose into fat. They keep us fuller for longer. They keep us more satisfied. But what we do need to do is to focus on the right ones. So the fact here about fat is the right fats help to mobilize our fat stores, and they have an important role to play in weight management. So what do we know about fats also for menopausal women over and above their role in helping us to manage our weight? Well, one of the precursors of estrogen and progesterone for postmenopausal women is cholesterol, because we make some estrogen and progesterone through our adrenal glands, and it's where we get our sources of estrogen and progesterone post-menopause, because it's not coming from the ovaries. So we need to make these estrogen, progesterone through the adrenal glands, and it's done through what we call the steroid hormones, which the precursor of that is cholesterol. So we need a certain amount of cholesterol, and our liver is going to make cholesterol. So keeping the good fats in our diet is really, really important. What else do we need to do for with our fats that are going to help us through the menopause? Well, for brain health, because some of the symptoms of post-menopausal through the menopause is we may start to lose concentration, we may think our memory gets affected, we start to get a slightly lower mood because estrogen has a role in helping serotonin levels. Now, what the action of certain fats do, and these are specific fats that I'll come on to talk about where we get them from, are known as EPA and DHA fats. And these fats provide the building blocks, they provide the structure and the function of the brain. Our brain is made up of 60 to 70% of these specific fats known as EPA and DHA. And we know these fats are really important in helping our mood, in helping our concentration, in helping our memory, and much, much more than that for brain health. So we need these certain types of fats. Aching joints, you know, we may be more prone as estrogen declines to have aching joints, and fats help to keep our joints lubricated. Certain fats also have an anti-inflammatory role throughout the body, and inflammation in our joints can be something that starts to occur as we get older as well. So getting the right fats in the diet, helping this anti-inflammatory action through our joints is going to be very, very helpful. Skin health, you know, fats are really helpful to stop skin from getting more dried out. You know, as we get older, we might find our skin getting a lot drier. We get thinner skin as well. So keeping fats in helps to keep the skin moist. And again, this anti-inflammatory action that certain fats have can help in later life sort of forms of eczema and psoriasis because of their anti-inflammatory action. So the 7 best types of fats that we can include in our diet every day, and it is really, really important to get a selection of these fats into our diet every single day. These are mostly coming from what I call monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats, and in addition to that, these essential fats that we get typically from oily fish, which is where we get this EPA and DHA fats from. We tend to think of omega-3, but the conversion of omega-3 to EPA and DHA fats, the ones we find in our brain, the ones that go on to become anti-inflammatory in the body, the conversion from omega-3 to these is very, very poor. So if we can get a direct supply of these from the foods we're eating, it's going to be really, really important throughout our life, and especially through the menopause. So I'll come on to explain those. Now, just let me mention briefly about saturated fat. Now, we don't want to be having a significant amount of saturated fat, but it's really important to understand that some saturated fat is not detrimental to our health. You know, if we think going back to our older generations and our ancestors, they would have been eating saturated fat and it wasn't detrimental to their health. I think we need to look at the way our livestock are raised and reared and what they're fed. Are they fed on pasture or are they fed grain? Can have a massive difference. But a little bit of saturated fat is not detrimental to our health. And in addition, it does provide those very important fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, vitamin E, and vitamin D. So they're really important. We think about getting fats in our diet from that perspective. But tonight I am focusing on the mono and polyunsaturated fats and our oily fish. So the first fats to think about and the foods are in eggs. Eggs are a fantastic food to be eating. Eggs do not contribute to raised cholesterol. I know I mentioned cholesterol as a precursor and we need fats in our diet anyway, but you know, fats directly are not going to raise cholesterol in a bad way. And they contain something called lecithin, and lecithin helps to emulsify fats. So if you're eating fats in your diet and you're eating eggs, they help to break down the fats, which is what we need to do anyway. And I think eggs are a fantastic food to be eating. I think they're one of the best fast foods because they're so easy to make, they're so versatile, and they make a fantastic breakfast. They get you off to a really great start in the day. The next fats and range of fats foods I want to talk about are the oily fish. These are the ones that provide a direct source of these EPA, DHA, anti-inflammatory, brain-rich foods. Oily fish, it could be tinned or fresh. Salmon, sardines and mackerel. Obviously great if you can get fresh. If you're going for salmon, personally I'd go for the wild Alaskan salmon. I don't like the farm salmon, but we need to get this oily fish in our diet 3 times a week. I haven't included tuna especially in here because tuna can be high in heavy metals like mercury because of the size of the fish and where it is in the pecking order in the food chain in our oceans. So it's okay to eat a little bit of fresh fish occasionally, but don't focus on that. Tinned tuna, yes, it's a great store cupboard staple, but it's very dry and it's had all those essential fats sort of sucked out of it in the canning process. So we need to focus on salmon, mackerel, sardines really, and ideally we should be eating them 3 times a week. Coconut oil. You know, coconut oil is a great food oil to be cooking with because it retains its properties at high temperatures and doesn't become broken down and rancid and creates free radicals. So it's very, very good from that point of view. It's rich in plant polyphenols. It's very antifungal and antiseptic. Great to rub on wounds, actually, coconut oil. Rich in vitamin E, and the specific fat that makes it very different to other saturated fats is its lauric acid, because it's known as a medium chain triglyceride. Very important to separate out coconut oil from other saturated fats that we find. Very good for cognition, for skin health and for energy. And the lauric acid goes down a different pathway, helping to create energy in the body. My next group of foods are the nut yogurts. I love coconut yogurt, almond nut yogurt, and you could have full fat Greek yogurt as well. Note the full fat. I don't do anything low fat. I love a breakfast, personally, of coconut yogurt, berries, and breaking up walnuts, for example. You can put pumpkin seeds on. Provides a lovely balanced meal. Doesn't have to be for breakfast, but that's typically when I might have that for breakfast. So those sort of yogurts, those fats are really good. Extra virgin olive oil and olives. Now, olives, again, are very rich in polyphenols, rich in antioxidants, have been found to be very, very good at balancing cholesterol levels in the body. They can help to increase HDL and lower LDL cholesterol, so getting the balance right between the good and bad cholesterol. It's a monounsaturated fat, so it's also very good for cooking at higher temperatures. Don't start cooking with things like sunflower oil and cheap vegetable oils. They're an absolute no-no, and they do not come into this description at all. Very good for heart health, so great to have that. Avocados, very good beneficial fats. No, they're not the omega-3s and the omega-6, but they are good fats to be eating. Rich in beta carotene, rich in lutein, very good for the eyes, B vitamins, potassium and magnesium. Nuts and nut butters, and I would recommend and stress eat a variety of plain unsalted nuts. Don't focus on one particular type. You know, it's good to have a variety of nuts, but I do not include peanuts because they're not actually a nut in the same category as this. So all types of nuts and nut butters, great to be eating. Seeds, again, eat a variety: sunflower, pumpkin, hemp, flaxseed, chia seeds. Eat a variety of seeds, good beneficial fats, good protein, good fiber, rich in antioxidants, and again, eat a variety. So I hope that's given you an understanding of why fats are so important in our diet, so important through the menopause, and why we need to be eating them. They are not going to be contributing to weight gain. You'd have to be eating a hell of a lot of fats for them to be influencing and gaining weight. And you just can't, because they make you full and they keep you full for a long period of time. So do make sure you're eating this selection of fats in your diet. You're getting oily fish in your diet 3 times a week. You're eating a wide variety of these foods as part and parcel of a healthy diet, and they're really, really going to help this transition through the menopause and into older age as well. Hope you found it interesting. Thanks for watching, and look forward to seeing you back next Tuesday at 6 o'clock. Thanks everybody. Bye.